Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Mansell's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with the editor of the Baton Rouge Business Report, Stephanie Riegel. It's business Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Riegel. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Nelson Mandela once said that education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. Sounds lofty, yet it's true in so many respects. But education is increasingly complex and challenging to navigate. So many choices today and so many variables that can affect outcome. So many different options that we didn't used to have in the past. With me today to discuss this is Nancy Cadwallader, owner of Collegiate Advisory Placement Service, an independent educational consulting firm that helps families find the best option for their kids from elementary school all the way through graduate school. Nancy, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thanks for being with us on Out to Lunch.
Thank you very much.
Joining me and Nancy is Sarah Broom, founder and executive director of Thrive Academy, one of Baton Rouge's most inspiring and impressive educational success stories. Sarah was with us on this show a while back, and her story was good then. It's even better today, as Thrive has grown so much over the past few years. Sarah founded Thrive in 2012 when she was a very idealistic and passionate 25-year-old teacher determined to make a difference in the lives of students who come from intergenerational poverty and face the steepest obstacles as they try to get an education. Thrive opened with a class of 26th graders as Baton Rouge's first boarding charter school for at-risk students. Today, it has a new campus for its 180 students, and it graduated its first class in May. Sarah, you were such an inspiration, such a great story. Thanks for being here today on Out to Lunch.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Nancy, I want to start with you because as schools have become more specialized and education is so much more complicated, like everything in the world, right? Your firm kind of helps make sense of it and break down the options for kids and their families.
Well, we work with students and their families to find the best fit. And that's what is the most important part, I feel, at the secondary level, at the high school level, and even further down. So we meet with families to help them say, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. What are your skills? By that I mean, what are your strengths? Are you a visual learner? Are you a learner that listens better? So what college or what boarding school or what high school works with that in the best way?
And we know so much more today about learning styles and learning differences, right?
Right.
Before you were either a good student or you're a troublemaker kid, right?
And so many teachers hopefully are learning more about that, but so many aren't. So we go through and help students learn. And whether you are the straight A student with high scores, you need to find the school that is the best fit. Where can you be happy? Where are you comfortable? Mm-hmm. And it takes going on that campus to see, and you may think it is the best looking school online, but you get on that campus and, oh no, that's not where I think I need to go. So we work with families to help them see that and work through all that and help them just discern that. And then when they decide where they want to go, look, apply, we help them with their applications.
Sure. Sarah, since Thrive Academy was founded as a charter school, it has become now a state legislatively authorized school. So
yes.
This was a big change for y'all in your development a year or so ago, 2 years ago?
About 2 years, yeah.
So tell us, what exactly does that mean and what has it changed for Thrive?
Yeah, so we started off as a charter school, and we were a boarding school, as you said, but the other boarding schools in the state are all these legislatively authorized schools, right? It's a better category for us to be in. It's also a much less well-known category, so I always find myself explaining it a lot to to folks that we are no longer a charter school. We are still a public school, but we're this whole different kind. So the other schools in the same kind of category as we are NOCA in New Orleans, the Math Science School up in Natchitoches, and the School for the Blind and the Deaf right here in Baton Rouge. So again, very specialized schools, most of them offering a boarding component. And we joined that grouping and became that kind of fourth special school. In 2016, the legislation was passed, but it had a 2017 enact date. So we've been at this now for 2 years. And it certainly has meant a lot of changes. You know, we are a state agency now. So it changed the way we did all of our operations, all of our back office. It has been a steep learning curve that I feel like I'm still on in a lot of ways. But luckily, we've worked with a lot of really great people at the state to help us make that transition.
Sure. And does it make it easier to get funding? Does it make it more difficult? I'm sure there's a lot more regulation, but also more support in other ways.
It definitely makes it much easier to be funded. It allows the state to make a contribution towards the residential component, as they do for the other boarding schools in that category. It certainly came with additional regulatory strings and kind of bureaucracy. You know, I always tell people we sacrificed a little bit of our kind of freedom and in the sense that we are now a little bit more bureaucratic, and we gave that up for some longer term financial stability, which at the end of the day I think was the right call. It also allowed us to expand to offer services to students across the state of Louisiana.
Okay, so
previously,
it's not just kids from 70805.
Exactly. Yeah. So previously we'd been only located in Baton Rouge and only took students from Baton Rouge. When we became a state agency, we now take kids from across the state, and that's allowed us to really go into other school districts and schools and communities and say, hey, this is what we can offer to some of the most at-risk students that you're working with that maybe you don't feel like you have the resources here to support in the way that you want to. And we can be this kind of opportunity. And so we've been, over the last 2 years, we've been slowly and steadily kind of growing out from Baton Rouge, which certainly comes with its own logistical challenges that we're still working through. But we're now up to a point where we're about 40% of our students come from outside the very central East Baton Rouge Parish area.
And when you say at risk, is it still the most, say, socially and economically underserved kids, or is it kids with special educational challenges as well?
So
is it people you want to get them out of their home environment to provide them with the optimum learning environment, or more than that?
So we always say there's not one right fit for Thrive and not one right descriptor for the type of student that we serve. But ultimately, we try to serve students who, without this kind of opportunity, would not be able to be successful in a traditional setting. So that can look like a whole variety of things, right? It can look like students who are experiencing homelessness, students who have parents who are struggling with various things from drug and alcohol addiction to incarceration. It can also look like students whose parents have passed away and are maybe living with grandparents, aunts, uncles, or elderly caregivers. It can look like students whose parents have severe chronic illness and really struggle. It's a lot of work to have a teenager at home, and if you are really struggling with a really chronic illness, sometimes that can be really a difficult challenge. Can be students whose parents work offshore or out of the country and don't really have a support system here. So we really do serve this wide variety of students.
It's so impressive. And Nancy, while Sarah's school is serving the most at-risk kids, I mean, are your services only for the affluent and those who have this kind of money to find the best or the best fit? Or
No.
do you serve a broad spectrum?
I serve a broad spectrum of parents. I do, and I'm paid by the parents. I'm not paid by, and that's one of the
That's
ethical,
important.
with all the scandal that came out this year.
We're going to talk about
Yes.
that.
That's why I was going to bring it up, because with the college scandal, or whatever they called it, I don't know.
Was it Operation Varsity Blues, I think?
Varsity Blues, yes. I sign 5 different ethical statements every year with the organizations I belong to that says I will not do any of the things that were happened. And the organizations that I belong to, and a certified educational planner, IECA, all those, we have those standards that we will not do any of those, the things that went on with that program.
Sure.
So, and I have parents that, and I do scholarship different parents if I know that they need the help, or a sliding scale if you want to put it that way. We work through it. I have some parents who will pay me so much a month, if that helps them. With scholarships, we work through it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think that this is free.
Yeah.
And this doesn't cost you anything, but it's very time consuming. I put a lot of money into traveling because I go visit all the schools. I go visit all the programs. A therapeutic program, I never recommend a therapeutic program if I don't visit it, because there's some bad ones out there. So I don't, all colleges, all boarding schools, I visit them. And you visit them every few years. For certification, I have to turn in 100 schools that I visit every 5 years.
It seems like, today in education, this is sort of the best of times and the worst of times. I mean, we know so much more. We know so much more about learning styles. We have so many more different options from private schools or schools that have resource-based programs for kids with ADD or learning differences.
Right.
We have very progressive places like Thrive that help, those that are really, really underserved. And yet there's still so many failing schools and such huge number of kids falling through the cracks. I mean, it's like both ends of the spectrum. Is that sort of an accurate assessment, do you think?
I think so. And I think when I look at kind of the educational ecosystem that we have here, and I visit other schools and I even reflect on our own work, so much of that missing gap, for me at least, is linked to behavioral health and to mental health and to just general social emotional well-being, coping skills, and really treating genuine trauma as trauma and allowing schools to be able to serve that need. It very much is kind of a hierarchy where unless you are kind of treating that underlying behavioral health need, which we all have at some level, right? Unless you are treating that for students and you get them to a place where they're in a really good place to learn, it's going to be a struggle no matter what you're doing to help them learn effectively, especially in the environment that we have where kids are so interconnected to each other, to the world, to challenges
They
that
do not
they
have the interpersonal skills anymore.
Do you find that, really?
Really, and they're all so glued to a screen.
Absolutely.
They can't talk to each other. They can't talk to an adult. So you've got to reach them and help them learn how. I mean, the pediatricians say 2 hours a week, and yet you see children glued to a screen. So you've got to find a way to reach them, to be able to help them that's not on a screen.
And I would imagine y'all are seeing kids with whose behavioral health challenges are coming from different places. I mean, yours, like you said, Sarah, are maybe seeing the worst kind of traumas and murders and parents in jail. You're seeing probably, Nancy, and I'm supposing here, but a lot of middle-class kids. But I just know from talking to people that there are a lot of screwed up middle-class kids too.
Yes.
And
Every kid has issues.
Everybody has issues.
Nothing changes that. And to a child that is in need of support, the level of resources they have don't change the fact that they're in need of support. But that screen time is something we've struggled with, right? Because
everybody does.
The kids live with us. So 5 days out of the week, we are kind of that parental unit, and we set those rules. And so we have a rule that no middle schooler is allowed to have a phone, period.
Oh, I love that.
And we are very strict about it. If you bring it, we
Most
take it
boarding
and we give
schools
it back at the
have
end
that.
of the year. Like, it is a very strict rule. For high school, we've had to walk this finer line because we originally said no, never. And then, the kids really pushed back with some reasonable, pieces that they were saying, look, the phones are a part of our world. Like, this should be part of our education. If you don't think we're using them correctly, teach us better, which was a very compelling argument. And
they're using them in the classroom so much.
Right.
With research. Well, I mean, research, they're all being told to research something online or to do this, so they've got to learn to use the internet properly. Unfortunately, they're thrown on the internet so much.
They say things on the internet that they would never say to each other in person. But as they spend more and more of their lives kind of communicating online and on the internet and being able to do things anonymously, that ability
Anonymous.
starts bleeding into their more interpersonal skills. And we find we have a lot of challenges with that. Almost every conflict I have ever had on campus started on Instagram. I
Sure.
mean, without
Wow.
a doubt.
That is so horrible.
Yeah, I'm going. Oh, okay.
No,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to switch a little bit because I told you a while ago that I have a family from Nigeria arriving.
Yes.
I do corporate relocation for businesses.
Oh, wow.
So that's what, and that kind of goes into the business. I work with a corporation with all their international families moving into the greater New Orleans area. And so I find schools for them in New Orleans, Geismar, whatever. And so this family is coming in from Nigeria. They've been in before, and we've gone and visited schools. They've applied to schools, and they're coming back in. And I have now arranged testing for them because the schools and the private schools require the testing.
Sure.
And so,
And I'm sure that's a very badly needed service for people who are coming in from the outside and don't know.
and the corporations say, I don't know about the schools.
Right.
And so I work with their HR department.
Do
or
we
whatever.
have a lot of demand? I mean, are there a lot of?
It seems
I would
to
love
be.
to know that there are new people coming into our markets in South Louisiana.
It has dropped off,
Yeah,
but I hope, that it will come back.
always good to hear that some. Yeah.
But there are some coming in. I got an email last night with a family coming in from Canada.
Okay.
So I got back on it. I have appointments set up for them at schools.
Wonderful.
And so we'll do that. But I think that's a different side
Yes.
that people don't see about a possibility of my working with corporate relocation.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. I'm talking with Nancy Cadwallader of Collegiate Advisory Placement Service and Sarah Broom of Thrive Academy. We'll be right back after this very short break. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. I'm talking to Nancy Cadwallader of Collegiate Advisory Placement Service and Sarah Broom of Thrive Academy. How many people do you all have working with you? Are you by yourself, Nancy? I know, Sarah, you have kept growing. How many employees are
Yeah.
under your wing now?
So we have 35 full-time staff and about 60 part-time staff, but they kind of share those duties because what we've learned is that in the evening, being a parent to 15 teenagers is exhausting, and it's not something you can do every single day. So we have teams of folks that kind of tag each other in and out. So that we don't get that burnout factor, and we let folks have a little bit of a break, be able to go to dinner with friends, be able to have a glass of
Sure,
wine,
yeah.
things that you can't do when you are the parent to 15 children.
Do you live on campus?
I do not. It was actually my mother's
used to,
one.
right?
No, it was. It felt like that.
Okay.
But no, it was my mother's one requirement when I started the school. Because I originally had planned to, and she said, "Absolutely not. That's the only thing I'm going to demand." So, and she was very right.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Nancy, do you have employees or are you on your own?
I'm on my own, basically.
Yeah.
I have a part-time clerical
Sure.
person, basically an LSU student who graduated, and I've got to find somebody
Oh.
new.
But you and your mom started this business together.
We started it together, and she
That is
died
so
3
cool.
years ago.
I'm sorry to hear
We
that.
We started it out of the volunteer sector.
Okay.
From our experiences from volunteer work on college campuses, and actually it was college presidents who urged us to start doing this. They said, help students find the right school to attend the first time.
Makes
That's
good
our
sense.
biggest problem.
Sure.
They're just going to school. And so we launched with our experiences. She had traveled so much and been on so many campuses, and I'd followed right behind her. And then I had done a lot of work. We both had
Yeah.
in the volunteer sector in the city and beyond. And so we launched in 1984.
And I bet things have changed so much in those
it's
35
all online
years.
applications now.
Yeah.
But and then my son helps me with reading essays. He is a PhD in philosophy.
Okay.
And his English grammar is fabulous.
That's good.
And he had a fabulous English at McKinley here in the gifted program. And as an example, the grammar in our students is drastically lacking. I had a National Merit Finalist 2 years ago. I proofread and work on, I don't write the essays, but I proof them. And I called a student, I said, it's the National Merit semifinalist, and I said, you ended 4 sentences with a preposition. His answer was, what's a preposition?
Right, he didn't even know.
He did not even know what a preposition was.
Wow. Sarah, when you are dealing with students, and I mean, I know this just from talking to people who've taught in the public school system and had trouble with kids being so far behind grade level. I mean, you're starting with kids sometimes that are 3 years behind where they should be or worse. What is the goal to, I mean, are you trying to help them not end their sentences with preposition or just be able to fashion a simple sentence? I mean, how?
Well, I mean, there are times when we start with sounds of the letters of the alphabet in 6th grade. So we're talking,
Seriously, sixth graders who can barely read.
Sure.
Where we really do, we kind of have to go back to the beginning and start all over. So a lot of our work, especially when a student is new to us in the beginning, is really just trying to help them get caught up and build those foundational skills. And from there, a lot of times, like, kids have extreme learning potential that is sometimes just hidden undercover by whether it's like some behavioral health issues, whether it's, you just never got the kind of phonics that you needed and now reading is much easier, whether you have some kind of speech disability and we can get some therapy in and that can make a huge difference. And you can really sometimes uncover that learning potential when you can figure out what the right thing is that's kind of hiding it. And so that's a lot of our focus is bringing our kids up to grade level. And then for us, we always talk about figuring out what is the best version of you. That there is no right way to graduate from high school, that there is no right path to take after. It's whatever the best version of you wants to do. Mm-hmm. And whether that's a 4-year college, whether that's a 2-year college, whether that is a job training program, or in the case of some of our students who have gone through some of our workforce development, it could be right out of high school, or right out of high school you go into your full-time job. We had students who graduated in our allied health pathway and in our welding pathway, and for some of them the right step was to go ahead and take a full-time job and get started on that right out of high school. And so we talk to our kids all the time about what does the best version of you look like and what do you want that to be? And that can be anything.
Sure. Nancy, do you sometimes see kids that really just don't belong in college or shouldn't be going to college?
Not everybody needs to have a 4-year college degree.
Exactly.
I was in a workshop, it was the SACAC Legislative Day, and I was sitting there saying and talking with counselors from New Orleans and other places. I said, not everybody needs a college degree. A welder will make much more than my chemical engineer husband.
Right.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
And I got in a very hot discussion with a counselor.
Not everybody wants
from
to
New
hear
Orleans.
that. That's right.
He says, oh, but he'll never be anybody if he doesn't have a college degree. And I said, that's the wrong mindset.
Correct.
You need to do what's best. Trade schools, the automotive program that is going on with BRCC.
Oh, and they've done
wonderful.
such great stuff here.
They
It's
really
wonderful.
have. The McKay Center is incredible. I mean, that is a real dream.
And so programs like that, they can go and get training skills. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I said, and they'll make much more money than they would with a college degree with certain degrees. But this college counselor from New Orleans and I just really
Didn't like that.
Not on the same page.
I want to go back to something that y'all said a minute ago about kids, say, at the 6th grade level that don't know phonics or something. I mean, where is the breakdown in the system? We know the socioeconomic challenges so many of these kids face at home, but how are their schools, whatever their schools are, promoting them year after year? I mean, is it the teachers they don't care, they just want to get, what's
Some
the
of
deal
that.
with?
I think a very, very small percentage. You certainly can't say that there's none of that, but I would say that that's not a big thing. But you look at holding kids back and having kids be so overage in their grade, that's also incredibly harmful to a child, because you get a kid who's been, you get held back twice. So once maybe in 1st grade because you didn't quite get the sounds down, or you didn't get the skill set that you needed in first grade, and then maybe you get to fourth grade and you fail we've changed it now, but
it's not leap
but
anymore.
you fail it and you get held back, and so now you're 2 years behind. So if you came to school at the traditional age, that means you're on track to graduate when you're 19 or 20. And most high schoolers are going to get to that position and they're going to say...
You can't play sports at 19 or 20.
Right. And they're going to say,
point.
like, I am basically 16 going into my freshman year of high school. I don't want to do this. Like, there's very few teenagers who would be able to overcome that kind of social emotional challenge of being in that
law,
position.
You only have to go to school through 16 or 17.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's what really does increase a dropout rate in so many ways. And so, to be honest, I would rather promote a kid even if they're not quite there, and then put some things in place to help them get there that next year, rather than kind of holding them back. Because you get to this point, especially in fourth grade and eighth grade, those high stakes years, where like you get a kid who got stuck there in fourth grade, they're pretty likely to get stuck there again in eighth grade, and it only takes that 2 years. Once they've missed those 2 years, it is so incredibly hard for them to get back on track.
And I teach kindergarten Sunday school.
Oh.
And so many parents hold their child back in kindergarten.
Right. So they're already old.
So they don't want them to be, they want them to be here. And so then they are 6 in kindergarten. And of course, we have the cutoff date of a September birthday.
Right.
And some schools have an earlier date. And so you have an October birthday. And they're already old. Mm-hmm. And so you have a
and it just
roller
compounds.
coaster.
No, I
and
can
it just
see
keeps
it.
rolling along. And so it's tough.
That makes sense.
And it's hard.
Well, Nancy Cadwallader and Sarah Broom, you both are doing so much to help students and families in the field of education, which is so important. It's probably the most valuable thing you can do for society. Thanks for taking time to share your stories and insights, and for being here today on Out to Lunch.
Thanks for having us.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Nancy Cadwallader of Collegiate Advisory Placement Service and Sarah Broom of Thrive. You can find out more about Collegiate Advisory Placement Service and Thrive by going to the links on our website, itsbatonrouge.la. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle, but engineering today is Colin Peden. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti, and our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino, Dave Winwood, and Ann Edelman. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on our website, itsbatonrouge.la, and on our It's Baton Rouge Facebook page. These photos were taken by Carrie Hosford, and you can find more of Carrie's photos at carriehosford.com. You can hear this show and past episodes of Out to Lunch wherever you get podcasts and at itsbatonrouge.la. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansur's for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansur's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansur's is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.